No time to color? Join me for these easy, loose watercolor cards featuring the Altenew STAMPtember exclusive stamp set. It's such a treat when two of your favorite companies get together to collaborate. Okay, this release was top secret. This is the Altenew STAMPtember exclusive. So Simon Says Stamp and Altenew got together and created this wonderful stamp set. It's called Framed Friendship, and you can see you've got these partial frames here, along with, of course, a flower arrangement and some great friend-related sentiments. So I have a piece of watercolor paper here. This is Saunders Waterford High White cold press paper, so it does have some texture to it. And I have some Daniel Smith watercolors here. I will have all of the supplies listed down below for you guys. I started off by wetting the paper with some clean clear water, and now I'm dropping in some Naples yellow. And after I dropped this into a couple areas, I decided really more of the look I was going for was more organic, and so I switched gears and then started to do some ink smushing. So my favorite way to ink smush is just to lay down some color on my glass mat, usually like two puddles kind of diagonal from each other, and typically I'll spray it with some water. This was already pretty liquidy, so I just went ahead and used it just straight out of the pan there. I had a lot of water on my brush, and then I get the best results when I dry each color in between. So normally if I'm watercoloring, I will let it air dry, but when I'm ink smushing, I don't really have the time to let it air dry in between each layer. So I'll go ahead and use my dual speed Wow heat tool on the lowest setting. So it's going to be less heat, less airflow, which will create less warping to your paper. Here I have quinacridone coral again, so I put down two little puddles of pigment and then I spritzed it with some water, and then I'm just gonna tap the watercolor cardstock into that pigment and pick up some ink. I love the way that that's looking, so I'll go ahead and heat set that off camera. And then for my third color, I'm going to use PERYLENE green. I hope I'm saying that right. Same thing, two puddles, spritz it with water, and I'll go ahead and tap the cardstock in here. When I'm adding color, I typically will add a color in an odd number, so I'll add 3 areas or 5 areas of that same color, and I almost always do it in a triangular shape as well. So here I was just using the packaging of the stamp set to determine where I wanted to put my stamp. I'm going to stamp up the floral arrangement with Altenew Obsidian Pigment ink. This is a water-safe ink. However, it doesn't really matter what ink I'm going to use at this point because I've already done my watercoloring. I do like the Obsidian Pigment ink because it stamps on rough textured paper really well. Here I have one of the frames. Now I decided to stamp these separately. However, you could do some simple masking and kind of tuck that frame underneath the floral arrangement. I added 2 sentiments from the bunch, and then I'll finish off this card with some Altenew satin gold sequins. I did trim the card down and I had a little leaf poking out, so I just fussy cut around that leaf rather than chop it off. And I popped that up on some sticky back fun foam. I love how these colors turned out. For the second card, I am stamping this on the same watercolor paper. I'm going to stamp it. I've lined the stamp up so that it hits the center at 2 3/4. And I'm just going to flip my cardstock around, and they're going to touch, but they're not going to overlap because I lined it up right at the center of the cardstock. This is an easy way to do that. That way you don't have to move your stamp again. You can just stamp it right away. I did stamp both of those twice. Here I'm going to spritz the watercolor paper with water on the front, water on the back. I'm also going to spritz the glass mat, and then I'm going to, when I place the watercolor paper down, it's going to temporarily adhere it to the surface and keep it flat without me having to tape it down. And now I'm going to drop in some of the same colors. So this is quinacridone coral, and I'm just dropping in some colors, and it's going to start to spread out because the paper's already wet. I want to do a watercolor blowout technique where the pigments come outside of the lines of the stamp. So if it's not moving enough, or if my paper's not wet enough in that area, I'll bring some clean clear water right all the way up to the stamped image, and then I'll add a little more pigment and it'll start to creep outside the lines. So I used maple yellow. I also used Amazonite genuine for the teal flowers, and then for the leaves I'm using the PERYLENE green, which was that same color that we used in the first card. So I'm kind of just dabbing the color on, letting it go outside the lines. And then these were looking a little flat to me, so I will add some additional colors. Here I'm just adding some clean clear water close to the stamped edge, again to get those watercolors to move outside the lines. So here I'm going to add new gamboge, which is a warmer yellow. It's got a little more higher pigmentation in it. And here I am adding QUINACRIDONE pink just to vary the colors a little bit and brighten it up a little bit. Again, I wanted some higher pigmentation in those. To add greater depth to the teal flowers, I'm going to add phthalo blue green shade. And that is a super pigmented color. I mean, a tiny, tiny bit of it goes a really long way. So be careful with that color. It is super pigmented. Here I'm just adding a little bit of raw Umber Violet to these. This color is in line with Copic E70s. If you're familiar with that color, it's a beautiful color. If you're familiar with the Altenew colors, then it's similar to Tree Bark and Winter Fog. It's just a really nice kind of mauve neutral. So I'm just deepening up those teal flowers. And we're almost done here. So after I'm done painting this, of course I want to let it completely dry. Now this I did let dry overnight. I just kept it right exactly where it was. And when I came back in the morning, it was still completely flat, which was perfect. That's another thing I like about wetting the paper from the front and the back and then just letting it dry. Your paper stays totally flat, which is great. To finish off the second card, I used 2 sentiments from the Reverse Love CZ Design sentiment strips. Those are also from Simon Says Stamp. I am in love with those sentiment strips. They're pre-printed. You just cut them out and put them on your card. So easy, so fast. Love it. I will have a link to the Simon Says Stamp STAMPtember release down below. There are new releases pretty much every day through September, so be sure to check them out. And if you like something, get it right away, because once they sell out, they're gone and they're not coming back. Thanks so much for joining me today. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing, liking, and ringing that bell so you don't miss any new inspiration. Here's a couple more videos for you before you leave, and I'll see you real soon.